Welcome to Quilt Like an Artist, Fabric Sketches with Straight Stitches. Today is one of those days where I have had a bit of a hectic week and I don't want to think. I just want to stitch. And that's when I do this kind of work. So I've grabbed a pile of scraps and I am just sewing pedal to the metal. Not quite as fast as what you see here, but I am just stitching. It may not look relaxing because I'm showing it to you 500 times faster than what I actually stitched at. However, it is relaxing for me. If I don't have to think, I don't have to measure, I don't have to use a ruler, I don't have to calculate math. I can just sew. And yes, I did put the colors together. And I'm taking a class later on this summer with Bianca Springer. I am hoping to sew a duster out of fabric. Well, I was originally going to do a quilt top, and I looked at all the quilt tops I have, and I'm like, I don't know if I'd actually wear those once it's done because they're a little bit too much for me as far as a garment. So I thought, well, what would I wear? Now this looks very orange under this lighting, but it's a little bit less gaudy than this, although there are some oranges in it. But I'm thinking I might actually wear a duster made out of this. So that's where the color palette came from. And now I'm really just doing this to relax and calm my mind and experiment and stitch. And, oh my goodness, thank heavens we have things like this, right? So after sewing these pieces together, I am using a ruler here because I folded it, I lined it up with the fold, and now I'm trimming it. I'm going to cut 1-inch strips, and I'm just going to do a series of these 1-inch strips and then re-sew them together and see what that creates. Here they are, and I'm going to lay them out, flipping them so that they don't line up, basically. You see how those two blacks are together? That's a nope for me. So I'm going to move the strip over. And I'm pretty happy with that. So let's stitch these together and see what this looks like. Watching myself sew in the playback when it's 500 times faster makes me go, oh, don't sew your fingers, you're so close. And it also brings up a memory of when I was learning to sew, and I learned to sew in 4-H. Mrs. Seeger, Hildegard Seeger, was our 4-H leader for sewing, and we had I suppose they exist now today too, but we had this little wire gadget that screwed on to protect our little 4-H fingers from getting stitched. It was like a little cage that was around the foot of the presser foot. I should Google that and see if it exists. Do you know if it exists? If you have any insight on the little sewing cage to protect fingers from getting sewn, put it in the comments. I'd be curious to know who knows anything about that. And there it is. It's kind of interesting. Kind of like it. A lot of little pieces. I wouldn't want the whole duster to be made out of this, but it could be a nice component. What do you think? Here I've put it up on the design wall next to a couple of 10-inch blocks that I've sewn from the same fabrics. And this is the other part of those strips that I originally stitched earlier. And I'm going to try something different. As you can tell, I'm not really sure what it is, but I want to do something different. So fold it in half. And now I'm just going to cut triangles randomly. Nope. So now I'm thinking, stop thinking, just sew. So here I go. Okay, last piece. I'm kind of liking the look of this. A little strange. There it is on the design wall, way on the right hand side. And I have 4 relatively long strips left from this pile of scraps. So I am just gonna sew them together. Keep it simple. I find this mindless sewing not only relaxing, but it also helps me to come up with ideas. Because when I'm not thinking about, my seam allowance or did I measure this right or whatever, it makes space for other things to pop into my head. Now, I have to say, I was inspired by a quilter on Instagram who had made this block, and it had little squares in it that absolutely glowed. And so I thought to myself, no, I'm not going to make little squares with this, and this looks nothing like her block. But the idea that she had this glowing effect is what interests me. And so I chose this light orange just to see if I played with that, what would happen. What kind of effect would I get? And not that I'm actually going for glowing, but I would say that, that quilt block actually did really inspire me. And if I had more time, I would get her permission and show it to you, but I don't have time because I had a hectic week. Oh, and I need to get this video out by Saturday morning. So maybe I can show it to you later. Of course, I'll have to find it again, but anyway, that's how ideas bubble up into my brain. And then this happened. I have pull chains in the ceiling from my ceiling fans, and I heard the chains jingle, and I turned around and this bat is flying through the air, and I took a picture just for you. And then I proceeded to try and get the thing out. I opened the door, and I scolded it and said, I don't need this right now. I've never had a bat before. And so I chased it around the studio a couple times, and I was using a plastic snow shovel to try and scoop the thing out. Don't mess with me. If you haven't seen my studio, it's in an old hardware store, and this building was built in 1900. So, I probably should expect things like bats. So, anyway, let's get back to business here. I guess my color palette is kind of Halloween-like. Maybe that just gave the bat the courage to fly around my studio. Right now it is May 2nd, so it's not Halloween season. And I don't know enough about bats to know when they come inside. I would think they'd come inside in the fall when it's starting to get cold, but I don't know. I guess I could Google that too. Okay, so now I am taking another orange and cutting it approximate 1-inch strips, and I am going to insert this the other direction from the other orange stripe and see what that looks like. So when I'm cutting these, I'm cutting the decision for where I'm cutting the seam is so it's kind of in the middle of the other parallel seams, if that makes sense. And a little fix there. So here, watch how I cut this. So I'm not cutting near any of the other vertical seams. There you go. It gives you enough room for a seam allowance. Kind of barely at times, but at least I'm not creating bulk. One of the things about working this way is it's kind of important for me to not judge what I'm creating. There it is on the right hand side. This is more the color that it really looks. It's a little bit, it's kind of actually in between the two. It's not quite as bright as under this light, not quite as dull as what you see on the design wall. So here are, this is the last pile of scraps and they're the shortcuts. And I was going to sort them and then I decided to really just go random and just sew them in the order that they're in and see what happens. I threw out those two orange ones because they were a little too short, I thought. And these are all kind of the same length. And then when I got done with this strip, I'm like, oh, I like this. It's kind of all darks. And what was left were all the brights and the oranges. So I thought I'm going to do the same thing again. And I am just going to sew the oranges together. However, you can see I am doing a little pre-planning here, which I didn't do last time. You know, when you work this way, you can make rules and you can break rules. Make and bake. I mean, make and bake and take, make and bake. Oh boy, I'm getting crazy here now. So there's the dark one, which I kind of like. Not sure what I'll use it for. And there is the orange one that needs a little repair already. There we go. The cool thing about this is if they don't work out for this garment, they will work out for an art quilt. So I can always use these somewhere. And when they're up on the design wall and you just walk into the room, sometimes you get an idea just like that. And sometimes you can stare at it for weeks and months and nothing happens. But, oops, an eyeball. So it just depends. You have to be, I think you have to be in the state of allowing. You can't have expectations. If you have expectations, you will be disappointed. So think of it like play and just wing it. So now what I have decided to do with this one is I am going to add this light pastel orange stripe in the middle of each section and see what that looks like. One of the things I always recommend is to pay attention to how you feel about the process. If you've been following me, you've probably heard me say this before. And if you like the process, keep doing more of that. And that's where this kind of sewing really, really makes me happy. I don't find it frustrating because I'm not having to follow a pattern or, like I say, do math or measure. You can just play. Now, this isn't for everybody, but what's important is to find out what's for you. So try all kinds of things. And when you try those things, just pay attention to how it makes you feel. Did you enjoy the process? And when I get these all up on the wall, what I'll do is I'll think about, first of all, it's hard to not think about what do I like looking at, but then which of these was the most fun to make, if any are more fun than others. So now what happens here is those two dark brown ones are kind of like drawing my eye. So I'm thinking, okay, maybe I need to add some additional dark to help balance this piece. So I pulled this out for an audition. It's interesting too, looking at it now in the replay. I really kind of like it with the way it is. However, I'm in person, you know, things always look different when you're seeing it on through a camera, or, you know, in this case, I'm seeing it on my computer through the video camera, and you see it, it's a different perspective, which is another reason to not be too judgmental. And now I'm looking at this thinking, okay, what part of this do I want to feature, basically? And so what I've decided is those little white dots. I'd like the little white dots to be in each of the strips. That means some of the strips will be wider and some will be narrower. And I'm just going to cut 4 so that I can try it out. And if I really love it, I can keep going. And if I don't really love it, I don't have to keep going. So now you can see these are, you know, an inch or less. So when we add these, it's going to be, you know, narrow. It's a narrow fit. So it's another thing I like to do is test myself and try out how narrow can I sew and still enjoy the process, or how narrow can I sew and need more practice. How narrow can I sew after lots of practice, and do I still enjoy the process? Sometimes we don't enjoy the process until we have the skill. So which is why I say don't judge yourself too harshly, because nobody's good at everything instantly. At least I'm not. Okay, so at this point I'm not too impressed, but I cut 4 strips, so let's keep going. So I'm getting discombobulated here, believe it or not, because I want those dots to be there. The dots are on, let's say, the top. And so I want them all to be on the top in every stripe. See, I am thinking. But sometimes it plays head, it's kind of a head game for me. See what I mean? I make myself laugh. More discombobulation there in high speed. See, now I'm getting the hang of it. Did you see that? There was no discombobulation that time. By the way, discombobulate is one of my favorite words. It has been for a long time. Don't ask me why, I don't know. I'm really starting to like this. It kind of has a feel to me of like jewelry somehow. Not that I'm going to create any jewelry literally in my quilt or my coat, but it just has the essence of jewelry. And funny enough, I'm not a jewelry person, but this I like. You see all those rings on my fingers? Jewelry girl. Okay. There it is. I think I like it. But I run out of time today to do more, and I'm going to pin it up on the wall and contemplate more next week. Here's all the pieces I created, and as you look at this, you can see, they each give off a different vibe. And so, like I said earlier, I'm drawn to certain pieces because I like how they look, and I'm drawn to certain pieces because I liked creating them. And so that's what's important to pay attention to. So thank you for being here. Thank you for watching to the end. I know this is a little longer than usual. I really enjoyed putting this together for you. So stay tuned and see where this goes. Bye for now.